Discover the amazing power within. A touching little bird's journey to transformative hope. Charlie stared out of his bedroom window, a face pressed against the glass, watching the bright flashes of color as birds flitted from tree to tree. Their lively dances sparked something within him, and ache mingled with yearning. His own life was mired in monotony and doubt, cast in a shadow that seemed to linger like a stubborn fog. In the small Midwestern town where family farms struggled under the weight of uncertainty, he felt invisible, a burdened boy caught in the grind of chores and drudgery, striving to find his place among wheat fields and tired smiles. Each day drifted by as his parents toiled endlessly, their wrinkled hands and weary eyes serving as a constant reminder of their sacrifices, but Charlie remained lost, buried beneath layers of self-doubt. One late spring afternoon, a rustle outside caught his attention. A small bird lay trembling in the grass. Its delicate body shook with fear, and at that moment, Charlie felt an inexplicable connection. This fragile creature mirrored his own turmoil, a reflection of vulnerability that spoke volumes. He knelt beside it, cradling the injured bird in his cupped palms, and rose with a newfound purpose. Each feeding and gentle stroke became an act of defiance against the shame his peers heaped upon him, branding him soft for caring. But could he really challenge their taunts? Could he walk the path of compassion while facing their mockery head-on? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. With the skies darkening and ominous clouds brewing, the wind picked up, sending shivers down Charlie's spine. The looming threat of a storm mirrored his internal turmoil, a tempest swirling within him, raising doubts that smothered his heart. Should he risk everything for a tiny creature that made him feel alive, or abandon it to save himself from ridicule? He could already feel the weight of disapproval crashing down upon him, like rain on parched earth. The temptation to safeguard his fragile self was powerful, yet the thought of leaving the bird behind filled him with a desperate anguish. As the first raindrops fell, heavy and relentless, Charlie's breath quickened. He held the small bird close, its heartbeat thrumming beneath his fingers, a reminder of the life he sought to protect. Closing his eyes, he contemplated the acceptance he longed for and the unyielding kindness he was beginning to discover within himself. In this moment, suspended between what was safe and what was right, he felt a surge of determination. To stand idly by, letting fear guide him, felt like a betrayal of the very love he nurtured. But the pressures of the outside world pressed down harder, warning him of the consequences of defying the norm. Charlie stood on the precipice of choice, the storm raging not just in the clouds above him but within his very soul. Fractured thoughts collided in his mind, each one a reminder of the whispers that followed him daily. Would he heed the call of vulnerability and risk everything to save another? The wind howled, rattling the window panes, a foreboding echo of the chaos threatening to engulf him. With the rain starting to pour, Charlie drew in a shaky breath, clenching the bird tightly against his chest. In that instant, he faced the storm raging outside and the tempest within, ready to confront not only nature's fury but the harsh bullying of his peers. Would he find the strength to pursue his own path and save this fragile life? The air crackled with tension as he prepared to step into the furious storm, the world outside beckoning him to embrace his courage and defy the constraints of doubt. The moment hung in the balance, the weight of his decision tugging at him as he questioned if the path of kindness could illuminate his own way forward. As the rain poured down in sheets, Charlie stepped outside, his heart pounding with every uncertain stride. The world blurred around him, a cacophony of sound and motion, but he pressed on, shielded by his instinct to protect the fragile bird. Each drop of rain felt like a challenge, a courageous call to action against the whispering doubts that clawed at his mind. The weight of the tiny creature nestled against his chest fueled a flicker of resolve he had yet to fully realize within himself. The wind howled, and branches snapped against the force of the storm, yet Charlie pushed further into the tempest, his determination solidifying with every forward step. He was aware of the laughter, the cruel taunts of classmates echoing in his head, but for the first time that noise seemed distant. Tending to this tiny life became a sanctuary from his reality, a commitment to something greater than his insecurities. He reached the barn seeking refuge from the storm, a space that now felt sanctified by purpose instead of stifled by mundane tasks. Inside, he placed the trembling bird on a bed of hay, moving quickly to gather supplies: the warmth of a small lamp, ragged bits of cloth for comfort, and drops of water carefully fed from a makeshift spoon. Each act was a silent rebellion against the doubts that attempted to smother his spirit. Through focused determination, he transformed the small barn into a sanctuary for his little friend, his hands moving deftly, guided by an emerging sense of competence as he tended to the bird. An unexpected sense of tranquility enveloped him. A lightness pervaded his heart, as if the storm outside had unleashed a torrent of empowerment within. He took a moment to breathe deeply, allowing the rhythm of his pulse to synchronize with the subtle sounds of the barn. In that arising stillness, he recognized a burgeoning confidence, the ability to nurture and protect, not just a bird but his own sense of self-worth. Yet, amidst the calm, a troubling thought crept into his mind. Would the warmth of this moment withstand the cold sting of reality? What would happen when he returned to school? The knowledge that the same peers who mocked him would be waiting weighed on his heart. Each question morphed into a reminder of his frailty, yet a deeper voice within him began to rise. It urged him to define what truly mattered: compassion over conformity, action over apathy. Charlie's hands brushed against the bird, still trembling but slowly calming under his touch. In this small creature he saw a reflection of his wounded spirit, but also a symbol of resilience. He realized that in risking his heart to help the bird, he was no longer just a victim of circumstance. He was choosing to embrace vulnerability as a powerful strength. Within the confines of the barn, a pivotal decision locked into place. Charlie would no longer allow fear to dictate his narrative. Nurturing the bird had sparked a flame, igniting a commitment to embrace his path, no matter how treacherous it might be. As the storm clouds began to dissipate, revealing slivers of sunlight breaking through, Charlie wrestled with a new realization. Deep down he understood that the real test awaited him beyond those barn doors. Returning to school meant confronting his fears and those lurking shadows of doubt that had so long confined him. Taking a deep breath, he turned towards the exit, determination propelling him forward but trepidation tugging at his heart. Would he find courage not only in the safety of this sanctuary but in the very halls of his school? The door swung open, revealing a landscape washed anew by the storm, and with it, the threshold to his next challenge lay ahead. Would he rise to meet it, armed with the light he had cultivated within? The fabric of his journey was now woven with daring threads of hope, ready to be tested by the world just outside. Charlie stepped out of the barn, a newfound resolve coursing through him like electricity. The air, fresh and vibrant, seemed to mirror his internal shift. He took a moment to glance back at the space where he had found a sense of purpose and sanctuary. It was as if the barn, with its peeling paint and scattered hay, had morphed into a crucible of transformation, shaping him with the warmth of compassion and the weight of responsibility. As he walked, the puddles reflecting the fractured sunlight provided a backdrop to his swirling thoughts. What had begun as a selfless mission to save a vulnerable creature was evolving into something much larger, a quest to reclaim his own identity and assert his place in a world where he often felt insignificantly small. However, the prospect of returning to school brought a knot of anxiety to his stomach. Would his classmates see the change within him? Would they even notice? He could already hear those derisive chuckles echo in his mind, taunting him as they always did. Those memories danced in the corners of his thoughts, but this time, they felt less like shackles and more like shadows he could learn to navigate. Determined to confront his fear rather than flee, Charlie quickened his step. His pulse quickened, not from fear, but from a burgeoning confidence that surged unexpectedly. The bird's tiny heart beating against his chest seemed to synchronize with his own, a silent reminder of the strength found in vulnerability, the same strength that pushed him towards the school that loomed ahead. The moment he stepped through the corridor, the familiar walls felt like a gauntlet. Students jostled past him, some with laughter, others with indifference. Charlie closed his eyes briefly, taking a deep breath that almost felt like the warmth of the barn. He recalled the soft feathers beneath his fingertips, reminding him of the gentle power he had unearthed within. He chose to focus on that. As he approached his locker, he caught sight of his usual tormentors positioned nearby. Their laughter boomed through the air, a threatening reminder of what he used to cower before. But today, fortified by a purpose larger than himself, Charlie straightened his back, feeling grounded in a certainty that had previously eluded him. "I'm not afraid," he whispered softly, almost as if drawing strength from the little bird relying on him. He reached for his combination lock, hands trembling with anticipation rather than fear. But as he heard a mocking comment thrown in his direction, the same stinging words that had once pierced through his heart, something within him sparked. Instead of retreating, he turned his gaze toward them. "You know, I saved a bird today," he called out, his voice steadier than he expected. "It's one of the most fulfilling things I've ever done." The laughter faltered, and silence briefly enveloped the hallway. Charlie felt relief wash over him as he saw confusion flicker across their faces. He hadn't expected applause, nor had he aimed for it. What mattered was that in that moment, he had spoken his truth, unafraid and unapologetic. He took a step closer to the group, fueled by an inner flame he hadn't known existed. "Maybe we're all a little fragile," he said, glancing at the bird in his heart, "and sometimes all we need is a little kindness." Charlie felt his courage swell, but as he turned to walk away, he overheard whispered jeers behind him. The doubts threatened to intrude, to lash at this moment of courage he had woven, but he pressed on, focusing instead on the power of his choice to confront, to engage, rather than shrink away. He reached the end of the hall, where his friends awaited with a mixture of surprise and admiration. "What happened?" one asked, eyes wide, curiosity piqued. Charlie hesitated, but then began to speak, sharing the story of the bird and how it changed him. Each word affirmed his resolve, allowing him to embrace the clashing emotions that fueled his transformation. Little did he know, this encounter was only the beginning. Would he maintain his newly discovered voice amidst the relentless waves of mockery, or would the shadows gather strength in the wake of uncertainty? Determined to explore these questions, Charlie could already sense that the journey ahead would demand even more of him, as his resolve was going to be tested again. And as he navigated through the hall, he felt the pulse of possibility in the air around him. What would it take to ensure that his small act of courage ignited a fire he couldn't control, one that would encompass both friendship and opposition alike? The day progressed unevenly, each class weighing heavier than the last as Charlie grappled with the echoes of his newfound courage. The atmosphere felt charged, as if the air itself anticipated some impending surge. Students bustled, seemingly oblivious, while Charlie absorbed their indifference like a sponge. The truth was, a flicker of anxiety still taunted the corners of his mind. What if today had been an anomaly? What if the next time he faced those jeering voices was when his resolve wavered? His mind raced with swirling questions as he entered his next class, glancing at the faces around him. The same crowd, the same relentless cliques clustered together like moths drawn to the flicker of a flame. But he couldn't drown in their energy today. He felt a weight lift, a sense of ownership over his story. The shadows that had once clutched at his heels began to dissipate, replaced by a shy but persistent light. As he sat down, he heard snickering from behind him, a cruel, familiar sound. The hairs on his neck tingled, a warning call. "Look, it's Bird Boy. Did you bring a feather to share with us today?" One voice rang out, laden with mockery. Charlie inhaled sharply, momentarily grasping at the comfort of his previous insecurities. For an instant, he entertained the notion of retreating into silence once more. Then, the image of the bird fluttered to mind, a fragile being that had relied on him. Suddenly he realized how far he had come. "Actually, I did," he said unexpectedly, turning in his seat with a confidence that surprised even him. "I've got something better than a feather. I've got a story." The derisive laughter halted, curiosity flooding the eyes of those who were once so eager to belittle him. Charlie felt a profound shift. It was as if their mockery evaporated in the warmth of his conviction. The classmates exchanged glances, their silhouette mimicry stilled by an uncertainty surrounding him. He leaned into that uncertainty like a gust of wind dispersing fog. "This bird didn't give up, and I wouldn't either. It taught me the power of embracing who we are, of finding strength in vulnerability. What have you done today that matters?" The refrain of his words reverberated within him, yet he remained acutely aware of the impending risk. Would they retaliate, or would they listen? The moment stretched, taut and electric, ripe with possibility. A flicker of respect crossed the face of a girl in the corner, someone whose approval Charlie had long wished for. "That's really cool, Charlie," she said simply, her tone genuine. It was a hesitant acknowledgement, but a crack in a wall that had once seemed impenetrable. Yet, the initial ripple of support was followed by a hissing whisper from a figure behind him. "You think you're all that now, huh? Save a bird one day and you think you're free?" It was another tormentor, his voice dripping with challenge. Charlie felt his heart constrict, yet a fierce determination surged. He wasn't merely fighting back for himself, but giving voice to something far more significant. It's not just about saving a bird. It's about learning to fly ourselves. Wouldn't that be worth talking about? As anger mixed with vulnerability in the room, Charlie's resolve expanded. He understood now that confronting these moments didn't mean dismissing the negative energy. It meant challenging it. The classroom, once a site of fear, felt transformed, charged by competing emotional currents. But this shred of pride wasn't untested. He anticipated backlash. Critiques would continue to grow sharper, maybe even target the motivations behind his actions. What if the courage that had started with the little bird eroded under scrutiny? The thought rattled him, an impending storm just beyond the horizon. As the bell rang to signal the end of class, Charlie felt the weight of his own uncharted path ahead. He had stepped into a realm where speaking his truth initiated both resonance and division, a space where risks were as vital as victories. While he walked out of the classroom, a hard truth settled in. Today had shifted the balance of his journey, but it had raised more questions than answers. As he stepped into the corridor, determination thrummed through him again. How far would he be pushed in search of self-acceptance? The whispers behind him faded, but the shadows still loomed. Was the world ready for the courage he was discovering? Would he rise with it, or would he need to confront deeper fears laid bare? With resolve anchoring his spirit, he took his next steps forward, uncertain yet unyielding, ready to find out. What lay ahead was bound to confront him more profoundly than any bird ever could. Charlie stepped into the corridor, the electric tension of the classroom giving way to the thrumming pulse of the school environment. The chatter of students washed over him, a chaotic symphony that might have overwhelmed him before. He navigated through the throng, absorbing snippets of conversation as if they came from another world. Once he had longed to blend in, but now he stood apart, buoyed by the lingering taste of his own declaration. Yet, as the thrill of courage flickered, doubts crept in, a whisper threading through the tumult. How far could he push this newfound voice? Uncertainty curled in his stomach like a serpent, feeding on the remnants of disbelief. He stopped at a bank of lockers, his hands resting against the cool, metal surface, and taking a deep breath. At a few lockers down, he spotted Sarah, the girl who had complimented him. Today was not just another day. Today was an invitation. He could feel it. Approaching her, he debated how to walk that fine line between eagerness and apprehension, mindful of the subtle shift in dynamics around him. "Hey, Sarah," he began, his voice barely more than a whisper tinged with hesitation. "Thanks for what you said in class." To his surprise, a genuine smile broke across her face, illuminating her soft features. "No problem. I thought it was really brave." Her words resonated with a warmth that bolstered him but also made his heart race. Had he inadvertently opened a door? "I guess I just want to make sure I keep growing. It's just a bit scary," he confessed, feeling vulnerability surfacing again. He wasn't entirely sure how to articulate it, how to make that leap from being a lone bird to a flock-seeking heights. "I understand," she responded, the empathy in her voice offering a lifeline. "I've been trying to find my own voice too. But it's hard. What you did today, it inspired me." Charlie's breath caught. Inspired? That was not a word he was accustomed to hearing in relation to himself. This spark ignited something deep inside him, but it also introduced pressure. Could he inspire consistently? Or was this just a momentary illusion of strength? "I was thinking about joining the writing club," she continued. "They're gathering pieces around personal stories, and it seems like a good space to express ourselves." The notion buzzed in Charlie's mind, a potential extension of his courage. Perhaps writing could serve as the anchor that supported his soaring thoughts, a way to untangle complexities that weighed him down. "I might go too," he ventured, mentally wrestling with the idea of opening his creativity to a larger forum, where opinions could be sharper, more critical. "Let us support each other then," Sarah suggested, her eyes bright. The offer felt sincere, yet Charlie sensed the palpable risk in it. If he faltered, would she pull back? The bell rang, jolting him from his spiraling thoughts. The world pushed him toward the next lesson, but within him something shifted. He had taken a small step forward, a step that awakened the dormant parts of himself he had kept hidden. Yet, the rough edges of anxiety still formed a jagged armor around his heart. Would this fragile thread of confidence withstand his encounters during the remainder of the day? Would he slip back into the familiar comfort of silence when confronted? The hallway around him felt suffocating at that moment, the stakes climbing ever higher. Charlie escaped to his next class, the hum of panic and hope colliding. There, he would need to confront his decision to step into a space that demanded more from him. Every word he had exchanged with Sarah replayed like a hesitant melody, prompting him to question how far he would go to truly claim this new part of himself. With a renewed sense of urgency, he found his seat and focused. The lesson veered into a discussion about identity and perception, topics that ignited an internal battle in Charlie. As he listened, he weighed the cost of identity against the potential for rejection, a precarious balance he was just beginning to understand. Would his courage continue to propel him forward, or would he find himself back at the beginning, silenced by the echoes of his past? The anticipation of the unknown pressed heavily against his chest, and he wondered, was this a test of growth or just another version of the same old fear? The educator's voice droned on, but Charlie's world narrowed, coiling tightly around his growing resolve to discover just how far he could soar. The journey was just beginning, and he stood on the precipice of something uncharted. Ready or not, what awaited him beyond this fork in the road could either banish the looming shadows or usher in the darker depths of his struggle and imminent reckoning. The classroom settled into a hushed anticipation, the tension palpable as Charlie's mind wrestled with his swirling thoughts. Each syllable uttered by the teacher felt like a challenge to unearth the layers of self that had remained obscured for so long. His focus fractured between the discussion and the echo of Sarah's encouragement. Could he truly manage this? Was stepping into the writing club merely another facade, or could it become the lifeline he desperately needed? He fought against the meant-to-be-ignored pit of dread that blossomed in his stomach as he pulled out a notebook. This was more than just a repository of assignments. Today it would become a canvas for his fears, hopes, and potential. He took a deep breath, his fingers hovering over the pages as he aimed to capture a soaring thought rather than a clenching anxiety. Each word felt like a tentative step into a new world. The lesson swayed into a workshop segment, allowing students to discuss their thoughts about identity. As he participated, digging deeper into the topic unveiled slivers of his own identity, showing him fragments of experiences that had shaped him. The murmurs of classmates became more than just sound. They started to intertwine with his own narrative, pulling him from isolation and stitching him into the shared vulnerability of youth. What if people judged my story? He heard himself question, the timbre of doubt blooming once again. It was a feeling he was intimately acquainted with, yet today felt different. The fear still sat on his shoulders, but now came woven with a newfound thread of determination. Wasn't he destined to remain within that cocoon of silence? A classmate named Mark, known for often dominating discussions with bravado, raised his hand. Everyone has their journey. We might think we're unique, but we're all facing our own battles. Sharing that's how we all grow, he proclaimed, real confidence spilling over his words. Charlie scrutinized Mark, recognizing a glimmer of truth in his declaration that resonated deeply. If vulnerability was a bridge one he could traverse rather than avoid, could it potentially lead him to a stronger version of himself? He leaned into the moment, allowing the collective voices around him to fortify his own. Maybe there's strength in being honest, he confessed, the rush of admission both frightening and liberating. A few affixed stares met him, curious, supportive. There it was, the flicker of validation pushing him further along the edge. As the bell rang, signaling the end of class, Charlie lingered for a moment longer, lost in thought. He caught sight of Sarah walking toward him, a buoyant enthusiasm lighting her face as she asked if he would really join the writing club. The sheer sincerity behind her words urged a rush of possibilities in his chest. Yeah, I think I will, he replied, his voice steadier than he expected. The commitment hung between them like an invisible thread, both grounding and thrilling. Outside in the rolling sea of students, the anxiety sought to creep back in, yet he held tight to the moment. The uncertainty of tomorrow lingered, but this time he felt fortified. He grasped his notebook with resolve, This was more than just a collection of paper, it held the potential for transformation. Each blank page awaited his exploration, and each word he would write could either shatter his fears or reshape his identity. As he exited the building, a rebellious gust rustled his hair. Charlie stepped into the cool breeze, wondering where this commitment would lead him. The writing club could spark a revolution within, an engagement not just for himself, but a potential connection within a community of shared experiences. But the momentary satisfaction gave way to the looming reality. With every step toward the club, there was the risk of exposure. Charlie was keenly aware that stepping into the light meant possibly revealing his authentic self, vulnerable, but powerful. As he approached the art room where the writing club convened, the whisper of uncertainty coiled tight within him again. Would this leap lead to the soaring awakening he craved, or would he emerge battered from confrontation with his own fears? He hesitated at the door, the cool metal handle sending a shiver of potential through him. Whatever lay ahead would test everything he was beginning to understand about himself. Would he find empowerment in revealing his story, or face the rejection that had silenced him for so long? As he took a deep breath and steadied himself, Charlie placed his hand on the handle, ready to open the door to his next chapter, terrified, yet exhilarated about what lay beyond. As Charlie pushed the door open, a wave of warmth enveloped him, contrasting sharply with the chill of the hallway air still clinging to him. The room buzzed with energy, students scattered around tables, engaged in lively conversation. It felt alive, yet he was acutely aware of his own heartbeat echoing in his ears, a stark reminder of his trepidation. He scanned the room and spotted Sarah near the window, gesturing animatedly as she shared a story. Despite the comfort of seeing a friendly face, uncertainty gripped him. Would he belong among those expressive individuals, or would he remain an outsider, wandering the edges of participation? Each step felt heavy, the weight of expectation pressing on his chest as he navigated the social landscape ahead. "Hey, you made it!" Sarah beamed as he approached, her smile not just an invitation but a lifeline. "Yeah, I figured I should try," he replied, his mind searching for the right words, something that could encapsulate the battle raging internally. "Good. We're just diving into some prompts," she said, motioning towards an empty seat beside her. Sitting down, Charlie felt the familiar flutter of anxiety in his stomach, each conversation swirling around him. They were rising and falling like waves, undulating with laughter and enthusiasm. He tried to listen, to absorb the energy, but his mind was cluttered with apprehension. The sudden urgency to escape the spotlight gripped him. "What if I have nothing interesting to say?" he thought, feeling like an imposter amidst their creative camaraderie. Yet, as the prompts were handed out, the air shifted. Each one was designed to coax out the stories nestled within their minds. "Write about a moment that changed you," one read. The words rippled through Charlie, igniting fragments of recollection that resonated deeply with his growing sense of anxiety and curiosity. He picked up his pen, trembling slightly, and started scribbling. The words poured out like a dam bursting, each sentence building on the vulnerability sparked in class. As he wrote, he found himself reflecting on all the small decisions, the lingering fears that had molded him into the person he was today. Every detail dug up from the depths of his mind seemed both alien and familiar. "What if they don't like my moment?" A whisper of doubt threaded through him, but he forced himself to silence it. Wasn't this the purpose of the club? To unearth and share what lay beneath the veneer? Charlie glanced at Sarah, who was engaged with another group, her enthusiasm only amplifying his desire to connect. The more he wrote, the more his confidence began to swell. "Maybe they'll see me," he mused, tempting fate. Maybe in revealing a piece of himself he could forge a connection, dissolve the barriers plaguing his existence. As the time ticked down, the sense of camaraderie intertwined with apprehensive anticipation. The club would soon go around sharing their pieces. The idea sent a jolt of fear through him. He glanced around, observing each face, knowing that for some, sharing stories was as easy as breathing, while for him, it felt monumental. He set the pen down, breathing heavily, contemplating his next steps. Would he stand and be vulnerable before these strangers, exposing his vulnerabilities for both admiration and critique? Could he turn his fears into empowerment, or would the potential for ridicule silence him once again? The realization hit him: perhaps this was his genuine test, the moment that could push him beyond where he had always stood still, hesitant in the shadows of others. The group leader called for attention, and Charlie felt the leaden weight of hesitation shift toward a simmering thrill of possibility. But there was something more looming in the air, a challenge insistent on unveiling itself. The moment had come to face not only the audience before him but the voice inside that insisted he remained unseen. His heart raced at the possibility of speaking, each pulse a mix of fear and motivation. Charlie could either retreat under the weight of expectation or seize the opportunity. A new chapter awaited, one that could redefine everything he thought he knew about himself. What lay ahead was the moment of truth, one that could lead him deeper into self-discovery or back to the familiar clutches of self-doubt. Would he speak? He could almost feel the decision forming in his gut, ready to shift him irrevocably if he allowed it to. What perils and promises awaited? As the group leader's voice cut through the chatter, Charlie's mind spiraled. The reveal was inevitable, the unearthing of years of facelessness thrust into the spotlight. He could feel it, the compelling beckoning of a deep-seated desire to belong battling against the hefty shadow of his apprehension. "All right, everyone. Let us circle up to share our moments," the leader announced enthusiastically, presenting a challenge wrapped in an invitation. "Who wants to kick us off?" Charlie's breath hitched. This time he could almost hear the pounding of his heart beneath the din of the room, a stark reminder of his reservations. The seats made it difficult to escape if his discomfort grew too intense. Almost instinctively, his body began shifting backward, a physical manifestation of his impulse to retreat into solitude, the familiarity of the edges of the room calling him home. "Come on, you can do this," he whispered to himself, fingers unconsciously pressing against the warm wood of the table. He felt the smooth texture, the very ground upon which he was poised to either take a stand or cower away. But instead the pause grew heavier, like a hand gripping his throat. Just then Sarah stood, her voice cutting through his internal chaos. "I'll go," she declared, her posture open, confidence radiating from her every movement. Her piece was beautifully told, weaving a narrative of growth and resilience, everything he admired yet feared he couldn't embody. As she finished, applause erupted, her words wrapping around the group like a warm embrace. A flicker of envy pierced through him, unmistakable, a longing to be seen, yet fearing the exposure that came with it. The next few speakers slid through their moments, each revealing a layer of their experiences, building a tapestry of shared vulnerability. Charlie's heart waged war with his ambition. Who was he to think he had anything of substance to share? Unbidden, another whisper emerged, more menacing this time. "You're just going to embarrass yourself." But the sound of laughter and supportive murmurs enveloped him, a melodic reminder that uniqueness was the essence of these encounters. Something deep within sparked a desire to join them. What if they connect with my story? He pondered. In the rare moments the doubts receded. Then it happened 2 seats down. A soft-spoken girl shared her moment of solitude on a rain-soaked day, speaking of how she discovered joy in her own company. Each word felt painfully familiar. There was a resonance echoing with his own feelings. In that instant, recognition pulsed through him, a revelation that perhaps his experiences could invite connection, not distance. As the circle progressed, the leader's eyes landed on him. "Charlie, you're up. Do you want to share?" Heat flooded his cheeks. The sudden weight of attention bore down like a thick fog. The choices lay before him, stark and uncompromising. Reveal his vulnerability or shrink back into the shadows. The energy of the room shifted, a palpable tension balanced on the precipice of expectation. He opened his mouth to object, to refuse, but the words got tangled. It was as if his thoughts were battling between self-preservation and evolution. Would he be brave? The clock of opportunity ticked, inching closer. With every heartbeat echoing like a countdown, Charlie took a deep breath, drawing on that kernel of determination sparked by the girl's story. "Okay," he whispered to himself, raising his chin. "It's time." The tension brimmed as he stood, each inkling of self-doubt replaced with a burgeoning resolve. But as he faced the circle, the weight of those expectations trailed heavier than before, slipping through his fingers like sand. Could he indeed transform that fear into words that mattered? Charlie opened his mouth, ready to weave his narrative, yet the whisper inside hissed, "What if you falter?" His story lay waiting, drenched in uncertainty and possibility, just beyond his lips. Would his leap of faith pay off, or would he stumble into the chasm, forever left with the question of what if? The moment lingered, stretching like a taut string ready to snap. Charlie's heart raced as he scanned the expectant faces in the circle. Each pair of eyes seemed to dig deeper, searching him for a glimmer of substance. He felt exposed like a painter awaiting judgment on a half-finished canvas. In that suspended reality, the world narrowed, and all he could hear was the echo of his own breaths, quick and shallow. "You've been invisible for too long." A voice inside echoed. Dismissed, belittled. Would this be another chapter in the story of his silent suffering? But as Sarah's smile bloomed in the back of his mind, the warmth and acceptance resonating from her story, a flicker of courage ignited. The image of the soft-spoken girl, revealing her moments of solitude, urged him forward. If they could step into their truth, so could he. Breathe, he thought. Just breathe. Okay. The word escaped his lips before he could overthink it. He couldn't return to the silence now. Not when he felt this growing fire of purpose. Tentatively, he began to speak, allowing the weight of his years to pour into the words that started tumbling out. "I often feel like a ghost," he murmured, the honesty spilling forth like an unguarded confession. "A bystander in my own life." Silence enveloped the room, thick with anticipation. Fingers clenched, he wrestled with thoughts. "Watching others shine while I hide in the shadows." As he continued, he described the moments that felt most raw, those times spent observing joy from the edges. The thrill of lives intersecting without him. Yet, embedded in those observations was a yearning to be seen, to share his story. Each word was a stepping stone toward liberation. "I've always doubted what I have to offer," he admitted, feeling a surprising steadiness in his own voice. "But recently I realized that perhaps it's not just about me. Maybe other people have felt this way too." With that realization, the words started to flow easier, transforming his monologue into a tale woven with threads of commonality. He spoke of rainy days, empty rooms, and the fear that came with truly being vulnerable. Each moment felt like a revelation, a piercing light illuminating the darkness he had held within. Nodding heads encouraged him, so he pressed on, recounting the girl's story of self-discovery and how it resonated within him. If she could find joy in solitude, he reasoned aloud, maybe I could find power in sharing. The more he spoke, the more weight began to dissipate. The sounds of laughter and soft murmurs from the group pulsed with empathy. Charlie felt his fears slip through the cracks, replaced by an exhilarating rush. He was here, alive in the moment, no longer confined to the margins. As he wrapped up, an unexpected sense of peace washed over him. "So, I guess what I'm saying is it's okay to feel unseen. It's not a flaw. It's part of our shared experience," he finished, heart pounding not from trepidation but anticipation. The applause didn't just surround him. It ignited a newfound warmth in his chest. But before he could bask in the aftermath, a voice broke through. "Remarkable story, Charlie. But what's next for you? What will you do with this newfound perspective?" The question hovered in the air, laden with expectation. Charlie felt the warmth of his pulse quicken again. This was no longer about surviving the moment. It was about charting a course ahead. Would he take that next step into the unknown? Transform this fleeting adrenaline into something profound? His mind swirled once more. The leap was exhilarating yet terrifying. What if I fail? Still lurked in the corners, but he was no longer alone. They had seen him, shared their stories, and perhaps inspired him to craft his own path forward. That as he contemplated this new trajectory, unease gave way to a sense of urgency. The question now was not merely fanciful. It felt like a challenge. Would he embolden himself to explore the unfamiliar terrain of vulnerability, or shrink back into the shadows once more? With those thoughts swimming in his mind, Charlie realized this was just the beginning. The dauntless journey of discovery had commenced. And what awaited him beyond this pivotal moment was something yet to be unearthed. With determination threading through him, Charlie stood on the cusp of transformation, fortified by the vulnerability he had finally embraced. The echoes of applause from his peers still vibrated in the air as he left the writing club meeting, a tangible reminder that he had successfully navigated the depths of fear that had long stifled him. In the wake of his confession, he became acutely aware of the shifting dynamics around him. He felt seen for the first time, not just as Bird Boy, but as a young man ready to soar beyond the judgments of others. Each step towards home began to feel like a victory lap, the ordinary world transforming into something vibrant and sparkling. Charlie realized that sharing his story was not merely an act of bravery. It was a commitment to reclaim his identity. He felt lighter, as if the burdens he carried had begun to disperse. The reflections in the shop windows no longer felt like a stranger's face, but a canvas revealing the artist he was becoming. His parents were waiting by the kitchen table, the day's work etched into their faces. As they inquired about his day, excitement bubbled up within him, energized by the echoes of encouragement still reverberating in his chest. Charlie shared his experience at the writing club, the joy intertwined with fear, the acceptance nestled in honesty. Each word reverberated with a force that he hadn't dared to believe he could orchestrate. His parents listened intently, their surprised expressions shifting into pride. Moments like this had been rare, recognition binding them more closely together, forming an unbreakable connection. Returning to school the next day, the familiar hallways buzzed with energy, but he walked them differently. There was a grounding in his demeanor, a solid confidence that dulled the sting of previous mocking. He navigated the corridors with purpose, responses sharpening his newfound resolve. When his classmates whispered, Charlie simply smiled unfazed. He had become untouchable in the most fulfilling way. Then came the unexpected encounters, the same classmates who once tormented him sharing glimpses of vulnerability. Themselves he saw their insecurities mirrored in his own. They didn't know the extent of his struggle, but in that shared humanity, he began nurturing empathy. As the weeks rolled into months, Charlie's growth solidified. He took on roles within the writing club, helping others find their voice, transforming into a consistent beacon of support. He accomplished his first solo narrative, published in the school journal. Its impact resonated widely, sparking conversations about kindness, vulnerability, and empowerment among students who had once believed themselves invincible. Recognizing himself as an agent of change sparked profound pride and renewed purpose. One chilly fall afternoon, a pivotal moment crystallized his commitment. Charlie volunteered to lead a workshop at a local youth center, teaching others about the courage found in storytelling. As he stood before an audience filled with eager eyes waiting for his word, he felt a distinct shift. This was no longer his personal narrative alone. It had blossomed into a collective journey toward acceptance, compassion, and growth. His hands trembled only slightly as he grasped the microphone. Behind him, a banner reading "Voices of Change" fluttered in the breeze. He shared not only the tale of the little bird that had first ignited the flame within him, but also the lessons he had learned through sharing his truth. The buzz of his words resonated across generations, prompting conversations among young and old alike, illustrating that even fragile voices possess the power to spark transformative change. As the audience erupted in applause, Charlie felt his heart swell. In this moment, he understood that vulnerability had not only set him free, but allowed him to craft an authentic legacy. The shy boy who once felt invisible had discovered the remarkable power that resided within him, transforming an isolated experience into a shared sense of hope. Charlie emerged from that workshop not just as a storyteller, but as an emboldened leader, rooted in empathy and compassion. The fulfillment was profound, undeniable. His life was no longer a struggle against the relentless doubt, but a harmonious symphony of actions anchored in purpose and connection. This was his moment of triumph, a true testament that stepping into vulnerability might just release the wild wings of the spirit. He had not only saved a fragile bird, but allowed it to inspire flight within him. Do not wait another moment. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel to embrace more exclusive emotional journeys, and to assure you never miss a transformative story like this again. Leave a like now. The algorithm thrives on your support. Comment below your reactions and theories about this powerful conclusion. You want to miss the conversation. And share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness the beauty of individual transformation. This is the moment to show your support. Don't hesitate. Join us in this community of personal growth and empowerment.